Get going. All right. Good evening, everyone. Guess what? We're going to be like halfway through after tonight, right? More than halfway through. So here we are with promoting sexual health, the basics and beyond. And this evening we will begin Unit 7, do the quiz, and then we'll do Unit 8 and do the quiz. I am recording, and now I will share my screen. All right, our first section of this unit talks about sexual expression. So sexual expression is expressed during our whole life, including how we perform or experience our gender and how we navigate our intimate relationships. So at all stages of development, human beings have the capacity and perhaps the inclination to explore bodily pleasure in ways well beyond overt sexual interactions. So sexuality is expressed alone as well as with and for others in both complex and simple ways. So one of the main things in this section, in this whole unit, it's going to talk a lot about male-female roles and what's the norm. So you're going to hear a lot of information that overlaps a little bit. So our relationships from the earliest age may influence our experience of sexuality and how we express it. Messages from our family influence, messages from our family influence, I'm looking at the picture, our attitudes, values, and beliefs, as well as our behaviors as children and adults. So for example, telling a child it's dirty to touch down there may contribute to feelings of shame or embarrassment that the child may feel about their genitals. So that's going to affect you lifelong through your childhood, as a teenager, as an adult, and people a lot of times carry these negative feelings with them, okay? Hold on, let me do one thing. I always forget to move this bar so I can read. So in addition, sexual expression is not limited to sexual or genital behaviors. So our interactions with those we love within and outside our families makes up a large part of how we express ourselves as sexual beings and in close relationships. So each of us has a sense of who we are as a person, as a sexual person. And this is often formed from a combination of factors that might include our gender and biological sex, our age, our sexual orientation, the extent of sexual experience, our attitudes about sexuality, our sexual desires, our culture, our relationship status, and family roles. So this sense of self is fluid over our lifetime, and when different self attributes may become more or less important temporarily. So sometimes life events cause permanent shifts in how we think of ourselves. In all cases, it's best for each of us as individuals to determine our own identity, along with any labels we may choose or not choose to describe ourselves. move forward. So I'm going to go into the section where it talks about cisgender women. So cisgender women may not reach orgasm from vaginal intercourse because there's not significant stimulation of their clitoris. So some positions encourage more clitoral contact and can be more pleasurable for her. So there are those who do not include penile or vaginal intercourse into what they do at all. And they likely do what is having sex. What they do is having sex, even if it doesn't include intercourse. So this might include someone whose partner is the same sex, or in a case with one or both of the partners having a health condition that limits the ability for vaginal penetration to work for them. So when talking with others about sex, it may be helpful or reassuring even to encourage people to expand their ideas about what it means to have sex. So some people may feel guilty if they cannot have intercourse due to a medical condition. Reassuring them that there are many ways to experience intimacy, and sexuality can help women and men to feel more hopeful and appreciative of their sexual encounters. So again, we talked about language in the previous chapters. This is another way, not only just with language and vocabulary, making sure it's inclusive and open. This is another example that someone could be experiencing something, and if you generalize and just assume that everyone has intercourse at this level, it may give someone a discomforting feeling. It depends on what stage they are with accepting what they have going on. Because sometimes you have people be like, oh yeah, no, we don't get to do all that, but this is what we do. Or I'm looking for some new ideas. Or someone else, it might be a new concept to them and they may feel really uncomfortable, and it just reminded them of them feeling like they're missing something. Okay, so the next section is sexual behavior. So there are many different ways that people experience their sexual alone or with a partner. Now, here are some examples of behaviors that some, but not all people participate in. So oral sex, oral meaning mouth stimulation of another person's genitals is called oral sex. People may perform oral sex by using their tongue or their lips to lick, suck, kiss, otherwise stimulate their partner's genitals and or anal area. So oral sex can include cunnilingus, which is the mouth on a vulva, fellatio, mouth on the penis, and analingus, which is mouth on the anus. So because of the genitals and the anal area, which are rich in the nerve endings and therefore sensitive to touch, nerve oral sex can be the source of extreme sexual pleasure for some. So many people enjoy sexual behaviors instead of or in addition to intercourse behaviors. So there are erogenous zones all over our bodies. In the previous chapter, we reviewed the primary and secondary erogenous zones, primary being the main source of pleasure. And remember, these things can vary from person to person, or secondary, meaning things that are very sensitive, but not as much as those primary areas. Okay. And then we're going to go into masturbation. This is really key, big topic of discussion in a lot of our sessions. I get a lot of question and answers, and probably you will too. Masturbation is one of the world's most common sexual behaviors. Masturbation refers to stimulating oneself or someone else manually for pleasure. Now, women usually masturbate by rubbing the clitoris, stimulating their vagina, or applying pressure to the G-spot. Hold on one second. Keep going. I'm making sure I got my notes on what I'm going over and what I'm not. So one can masturbate alone or with others. Masturbation can include stimulating our own or someone else's genitals. So some people were raised with negative views towards masturbation, which can cause them to feel guilty or shame about masturbating. though the majority of people who do masturbate during their lives. So it's really, really common, but most are made to feel shame about it or guilt. Masturbation represents the best way to learn what you prefer and how you'll respond to some sexual types of stimulation. It's one of the best ways to learn about your own body. So there are some book references there that are cited here, but there's The Joy of Self-Loving, Self-Exploitation. It emphasizes, particularly for women who have difficulty reaching orgasm in partner sex. Okay, so many people do enjoy masturbating in front of their partners, and some enjoy pleasuring their partners or having their partners masturbate them. An act sometimes referred to as mutual masturbation. Here we go. Masturbating alone or in front of your partner need not be an indication that anything is lacking in your relationship with your partner. Masturbation needn't be considered cheating on your partner, though some people are very private about their solo sexual experiences. So that is also something that you'll find is common, that sometimes if women are buying like toys just for themselves, if they do have a partner or they're married or something, some of them, they have them, they're buying them out in the open, meaning that, oh yeah, my partner knows that I'm getting these toys. And then sometimes these are things that they're purchasing from you, but it's for their secret pleasure side. So you'll find out in your experience in selling these products that sometimes women are sharing this experience and sometimes they're not. And it varies from committed relationships to ones that are not so committed. So it's not just either way, just they might want to keep that part to themselves. Sex toys. So using sex toys is a common behavior for many people. Researchers from the Center of Sexual Health Promotion at Indiana University conducted a nationally representative survey of American women and men ages 18 to 60. They found out that more than half of the women, 53%, and almost half of the men, 46%, had used a vibrator. Sex toys can help individuals and couples to experience sex play in new ways. Some women report more intense and quicker orgasm from vibrator stimulation than other forms of stimulation. Men may also enjoy using vibrators for masturbation and for coupled sex play. A wide variety of vibrators and stimulators are available to enhance the sexual experience. Risk reduction precautions should be used when sharing toys or sharing sex toys with another person to prevent transmitting sexually transmittable infections, STIs, STDs. Now, these STI risk reduction strategies include proper cleaning of toys, and we sell the best, right? We got foam and spray now, toy cleaner, and doing that before and after use, and or using a condom over a vibrator or other sex toys.
I feel like that's going to be a question on the test.
No, it's not.
It should be.
All right, we got sexual fantasy and cyber sex. Technology moved us up a notch. So sexual fantasy, let me just see if I got that. Yep, I got that part highlighted. Here we go. Bam. All right. So people may use sexual fantasies when they are alone or to heighten their sexual excitement with a partner. Now, typical fantasies involve having sex with a famous person, with someone who you are attracted, with multiple partners, with partners of various genders, in public or forbidden places, and ways involved to be forced or being overtaken, and those overtaken by your sexual appeal and so are uncontrollable in their desire for you. So fantasies can be about people you know or those who are not even real. Some people can keep their fantasies very private. Others share some or all with their partner or others. Now, when fantasies are shared, there's perhaps an opportunity to enact or role play the fantasy, scene, or situation, or to just learn more about your partner and share more about yourself, thus promoting closeness and intimacy. Can go two different ways. Oh, look at her. Don't she look jazzy, y'all? She ready.
Bow chicka wow wow.
All right. So we have, I thought y'all liked that picture. So I skipped one part I didn't want to read. Whether part of a fantasy or role play, such as acting out a striptease dance for your partner, or to just feel more sexy wearing lingerie or other sexy clothing and props, you can enliven or a dull relationship or keep an exciting one lively. Now, introducing novelty, fun, and playful spirit can be an effective way to enhance your personal and relationship experience. Many accessories and props are available in adult-oriented venues and online, and you only need to add your imagination. All right, y'all got your imagination going. We got a new kit coming out, and they got all kind of bondage stuff, handcuffs, and we got, and then in our catalog, we got ticklers and everything, right? I'm just saying. All right, so let's go on about this cyber sex and sexting. So cyber sex and texting and techno sex. Wow, are terms that include lots of different ways to engage sexually using some kind of technology. So in the broadest sense, vibrators and electronic sex toys are a form of techno sex. Also, at the end of the continuum that includes things that are very common and accessible is phone sex. Phone sex can include anything from erotic phone messages with your partner to romantic calls to pay-per-use or free chat lines that allow you to find someone to talk sexy to you. Technology is developing rapidly to allow tiny things like condoms and large things like stimulator chairs to vibrate and provide sensation and pleasure to a user. Some are sophisticated forms of techno sex, might include sensory probes and stimulators manipulated by a partner at another location. We have that, don't we? Don't we have remote control? We got one on a wristband, remote control, and then we got the one, a couple hand remotes, right? Now they gotta have someone in a whole nother location. We're not even talking about the 32 feet. So there are many different ways that women and men can use computer and phone technology to enhance their sex lives. Some sexual health promotion professionals point out that sexting can be used among couples to enhance foreplay or to communicate about one's desires during the day, so that when a couple sees each other in the evening, they've already explored and perhaps felt excited about how they might be intimate or sexual together later on. Woo-woo. Now let's go into variations of sexual expression. I thought we did when we said it wasn't limited to intercourse, but evidently there's some other aspects. Yes. Okay, so in the 1940s and 1950s, Dr. Alfred Kinsey and his colleagues published historic books about sexuality and variations in sexual behavior among men and women. Now, sexual behavior in the human male in 1948 and sexual behavior in the human female in 1953. This work set the stage for understanding the wide variation in how people express their sexuality. I hope we got something else up to date. No. Therapists and sexologists generally report that there is almost nothing that someone isn't turned on by, and people report a broad continuum of sexual desires and experiences over the life course. Sexual expression is at the core of a human being, and people engage in sexual activities to express pleasure, feelings of attraction and affection, emotional closeness, love, romance, connection, celebration, curiosity, and so much more. Many, but not all of these motivations are found across eras and cultures. So this is just talking about a lot of cultural differences and the history of them, okay? And we talked about in previous chapters the statistics about how by the time that most Americans graduate from high school, about half have had intercourse. And we said what, by the age of 18, almost everyone has had intercourse, right? Except for about 20%. So anal sex is less frequent, although it is not uncommon. According to the U.S. Nationally Representative Survey, the 2015 Sexual Exploration in American Survey, it said that 43% of men report having performed anal sex on a partner, and about 37% of women report having received anal sex. So I'm going to go into this part right here where it says, another variation in what people do sexually is indicated by the number of sex partners they have during their lifetime. Generally speaking, men tend to have more sexual partners than do women in many cultures, including the United States. That said, it is not uncommon for both genders to have had several sexual partners over the course of their lifetime. Additionally, it appears as though the gender gap is narrowing, which is likely due to the increased number of years women are remaining single to pursue other avenues such as career or education or goals. I'm missing a part that was highlighted. Let me see. All right. It is difficult to know with accuracy the full range of behaviors people engage in. What is considered normal has to do with the extent that people do a behavior, and not if it's considered morally acceptable or somehow more natural than other behaviors. In looking at sexual behavior of Americans, we see that variation in what people do is normal. People engage in all sorts of sexual behavior. So, for example, the research 2015 Sexual Exploration in American Studies showed that more than 75% of women have worn sex lingerie for a partner. More than 40% of American women and men have had sex in a public place, and about 17% have used anal sex toys, and at least 57% of the women have read erotic stories. 10% of women and 17% of men have had a threesome or group sex, and about 1/3 have spanked or been spanked by a sexual partner. In short, people do all sorts of interesting things with their personal sexual lives. There is no one way of having sex or being sexual. That is what this unit wanted to get across to your mind. Oh, this is a unique chapter right here. All right, y'all ready for paraphilias?
Yep.
All right, so this is pretty much an advanced version of the section we just went over on variations of sexual expression, but they just gave it another name because it needed another name. Okay. Keeping my papers in order. Sorry. All right. All right, so paraphilias are sexual behaviors that are considered by many to be outside the norm. Specifically, the American Psychiatric Association has defined paraphilias as sexual behaviors that have occurred for someone at least 6 months and are causing problems for the person or their relationship. Okay, so that's the definition of that. Paraphilias involve intense sexual urges and behaviors that might involve non-humans, meaning like animals or inanimate objects, suffering or of self or others, or those who cannot have provided consent for sexual involvement. People with paraphilias tend to describe themselves as feeling overcome with urges in socially unacceptable ways by feeling that the urges are insistent, demanding, and compulsory. That is the definition, okay? As a group, this represents a broad spectrum of behaviors, some of which are very common. These behaviors range from being fairly typical, like fetishes and non-coercive paraphilias generally, to being highly taboo or illegal, incest, zoophilia. Some paraphilias are solo acts or involve a consenting partner who agrees to participate in, observe, or tolerate the behavior. Others involve coercion or lack the informed consent of everyone involved, and so violate basic sexual and human rights. So coercive acts can have harmful impacts on those who are involved. Now, there's a section here with all of the definition of different paraphilias. You have the non-coercive ones, like fetishism, like being sexually aroused by an inanimate object, a shoe, lingerie, leather, some panties, something like that, right? So there's a list of 4 non-coercive paraphilias. It says partialism, being aroused by a body part, leg, breast, buttocks, toes. Y'all heard of that before. Sadism, being aroused by causing physical or psychological pain or humiliation to another. And masochism, being aroused by receiving physical or psychological pain or humiliation. So one is being caused by and one is receiving. Being aroused and by causing, and one is being aroused by receiving. A little bit of a difference, right? Coercive, exhibitionism, being aroused by exposing your genitals to an involuntary observer. Wow. Okay. Mooning somebody, is that? I guess if it meets the criteria of a paraphilia, meaning like it's excessive, right? It's done often. Voyeurism, being aroused by looking at naked bodies of others or observing others having sex without their consent. So these are the coercive ones. Scatologia, being aroused by making obscene sexual phone calls that are unwanted by the recipient.
Creepy.
Right? Frotteurism, being aroused by pressing or rubbing against another person, usually in a crowded place.
Which is why I don't ride buses anymore.
Zoophilia, being aroused by contact with the animal, also called bestiality, which is also illegal. And necrophilia, being aroused by having sex with a corpse.
Oh no.
I told you this unit was like, okay.
Some of it I didn't even know that it had a name,
Right.
Sadly, I knew like all of these existed.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna be the best.
A lot of class. So
I'm gonna have your on speed down. Be like, no, not just kidding.
What is
Right,
that's
I think that's a condition. No, just kidding. Paraphilia. No.
Mental condition.
So
no.
Yes.
I know they said like we're not supposed to be like judgmental about this kind of stuff, but is it okay to be concerned if they express interest in things like that? I mean, isn't some of that illegal?
Well, we just read a definition of things that what they described as problematic, remember? So, yes, this anything in this category would be a red flag. A red flag because according to the Psychiatric Association, those are behaviors that have occurred for ongoing time, meaning 6 months, and they're causing problems for a person or relationships. It's pretty much things that can't be controlled too. You know, they're like urges and they're not able to deal with them.
Is there a place that we can go back and read this?
Oh, absolutely. Who is this, Leslie?
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
It's in the, oh, sorry.
Have you registered yet for this course? Do you know where to go to register?
I have not done that yet.
Okay, so I did post a video in the Zealous Zebras group, and it kind of walks you through the steps.
Yeah, I saw it. I've been busy, so I've been listening to this while I'm walking my dog.
Okay, good. So just do that, right? And what you would do is go ahead and register, and then you'll be able to see all these learning units as well as watch the YouTube videos that we're recording.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm going to listen to this, but I wanted to be able to go back and kind of.
Absolutely.
And Leslie, maybe you and I can get together because I'm playing catch up too because I started late. And we can watch the videos together.
Yay!
All right.
We need to get together anyway, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I like it. I like it. All right. Let's talk about why we do what we do. Okay, so various emotions are experienced and expressed through our sexuality and sexual behaviors, and there are many motivations for sexual expression. A key aspect of why we have sex is to express emotions like love, attraction, sexual desire, passion, forgiveness, joy. Thank you. Okay, my mail came. Y'all know what this is, right?
Is that the journal?
The planner, right?
Yay!
But my daughter's like, you're looking for this. Okay, thank you, babe. All right. All right, can you go back out? Thank you. Any reason to come in when she says she can come in this part. All right, so many emotions can motivate us to engage in sex, such as excitement, loneliness, guilt, gratitude, or to release tension. All great reasons, right? Most commonly, research suggests that people have sex because they feel attraction for someone, or because they expect it to be pleasurable, or because they are in love or want to express affection to a partner. Look at that. Don't they look so happy? Okay. Sexual expression is a way we address the universal human need to connect to others. Many are longing for connections to others and find sexual expression to be an essential piece of this interaction. Now, a common concern is whether or not the way one wishes to express their sexuality is perceived as normal or typical. However, providing the sexual expression of sexuality is consensual, is not harming anyone, and is done with sexual health in mind. The continuum of what is typical and can be quite wide. Sexual addiction and compulsivity. So over the years, media has seen an influx of celebrities and influential public figures claiming sexual addiction as a diagnosis and explanation for their acts of infidelity on their partners and with whom they are committed. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to see, somebody's audio is coming through.
It's not me, no.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so So a person who experiences compulsive sexual behavior, popularly called sex addiction, they use sexual behavior as a means of reducing anxiety, lacks control over his or her sexual impulses, typically experiences minimal satisfaction from sexual contact, feels bad about his or her sexual contacts, but engages in the behavior repeatedly, engages in illicit sexual behavior that endangers his or her own well-being and well-being of his or her family, cannot resist sexual opportunities, continues sexual contacts that are not intimate, that are dangerous or undesirable, tolerance, which seek increasingly illicit sexual contacts, and withdrawal, anxiety, and preoccupation with craved activity or symptoms. So compulsive sexual behavior is very much related to obsessive compulsive disorder, where one cannot eradicate certain thoughts or ideas and has incredible difficulty controlling behaviors. Is that pretty much clear to everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. Consent. It must be.
I was going to say something in regards to that. Sometimes people get sexual addiction confused with a high sex drive, and there is definitely a difference.
The addiction becomes when someone can't control themselves, though.
Yeah.
You mean, to have a high sex drive is one thing, but to not be okay if you didn't have it at that day, that time, that moment that you felt aroused and you needed to, there's a different reaction when you're addicted.
Or you can't take care of your business because all you can
right, life starts shutting down. No, look, we all can get a little cranky if we don't get what we need, but does it stop us from our daily functions in life? And that's addiction across the board is similar. Because I've done some other courses like mental health and addiction and things like that, just as a first aider. Those things are very similar. The behavior is.
A couple of movies that depict it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of them was like Black Snake Moan, and then like the other one was like Nymphomaniac.
Oh, really? I have not seen either of those two.
Me either. I might go watch it now.
Black Snake Moan, y'all. You just scared us.
It was one of my favorites, but the Nymphomaniac was more of like, it was like a European woman, and it was like really psychological, and it showed how like she was going through it, and she lost her husband and her family because of it.
Okay. Yeah. And see, that was described in those behaviors. That's why they kind of list some things that give you a guide, so you'll have an idea what they're saying is happening. Okay. Consent, very, very key. It must be acknowledged that some sexual behavior involves some level of force, manipulation, or coercion that can range from very subtle or explicit and overt. Now, sometimes sexual behavior is performed to survive, stay safe, or maintain a status quo. Now, too often sexual behaviors are forced on others through the use of power differences. So using sex to hurt others can create situations that range from sexual harassment or name calling to violent rape, torture, and even death. Okay. In all situations where sexuality is used as a weapon against others, it is important for those in less power to recognize that the situation is not their fault, and that this situation, that this is a situation about power, not sexuality. Regardless of their position, everyone has a right to live, work, play, and go to school in environments that are safe, respectful, and demonstrate a belief that everyone has inherent self-worth. So there are many factors that can affect one's sexual decision-making, as such influence which sexual behaviors happen, if any, including these. having accurate information about a sexual behavior and potential risk involved, using alcohol or other drugs, having means to reduce real and perceived risk involved with engaging in the behavior, skill or ability level and support available to refuse or negotiate alternatives, availability and desire of a partner, as well as the context of the relationship and situation, and one's self-esteem of embracing a reason to care about the outcome or future. Now, our level of information and sense of personal power is linked to our ability to consent or to negotiate about sexual behaviors. There are many misconceptions about how people should be in relationships, and each of us has our own ideas about which sexual behaviors are appropriate and feel right, when and with whom. Ideally, everyone would have the opportunity to have informed consent for every behavior they engage in, every time, with every person, in every place that it ever happens. This is true even when you are consenting to the same behaviors you've done with someone. You have done them in a place and you have done them before. You can get consent or not to everything, every time, with everybody, no exceptions. And if we're in the middle of engaging in a sexual behavior and we feel unsure or change our minds, that's okay too. That I read all of that because in totality, that is very, very, very key for ourselves, for others as we share. And many, many, many times people are not clear of that understanding. Just because you had it engaged, you engaged in a sexual activity with someone else, and then that another person wants you to do that, it doesn't mean because you did it before you want to do it again or you want to do it with that person. That is not okay. And yes, you can consent to something and change your mind. And I know there's a lot of gray area, and I've had a lot of people debate about that, but here, this is text from the university, and depending on what state you're in, all the rules and laws change and are very particular, but it is recommended that if you change your mind, that you just state that, and that is okay. And you have to teach even children. I have children, and it's important to teach them how that goes.
Yeah, they used the comparison of like making a cup of tea for consent. It was pretty funny.
Of using what?
A cup of tea, like
Mhm.
if somebody offers you tea, you can be like, no, I don't want any tea. You can't force them to drink the tea. Or if somebody wants to have tea, you can say, yes, I'd like a cup of tea. They go and make the tea, and you're like, you know what, I changed my mind, don't want the tea. You still can't force them to drink the tea.
Right. Okay, so the extent and frequency that each of us want sex varies individually and at different times during our lives. Many factors include desire, health, medications, lifestyles, availability of partners, and present circumstances can determine how much sex you want to engage in and at any given time. Differences in levels of sexual desire or interest are among the top reasons people seek counseling or therapy. This range can be viewed as a continuum like the one below. So you have asexual, no sexual interest at all, hyposexual, low sexual interest, and then hypersexual, which is high sexual interest. Again, these aren't in the category of the paraphilias and extreme desires and things like that. But these are the legal things you can do. All levels of interest are okay. So that's what I was saying. And aspects of our individual sexuality and sexual expression. How we express sexuality over time will vary. All right, communication. It makes the better sexual experience. Communicating our wants. Many behaviors can become enjoyable ways to express romantic and erotic feelings. Knowing what our partner wants or prefers is impossible without communicating about it. Okay. This conversation needs to be integrated into the sexual experience as an ongoing dialogue. It can happen once and be done. Just as we like different behaviors at different times, sometimes we like the same behaviors done differently. Consider the many variations to describe a behavior. These variations can exist on several continuums, such as, so they have dry, wet, rough, gentle, soft, hard, quiet, loudly, fast, slow, deep, shallow, private, public, stiff, or relaxed. You can change up. We talked about the variations, right? Consider a number of sexual behaviors from a kiss to intercourse and how the variations in the graph might help you describe to your partner how to match the behavior to your mood. So now here's some vocabulary, use that vocabulary to help communicate. Sometimes we don't know how to put it in words. This is a great little guide here, right? The best way to get what you want is to ask for it. When communicating with a partner about what you want sexually, you may wish to consider 1, raising the topic when you're not in bed, talking about it over coffee or on a walk or while relaxed together at a later time. Talk about what you like and what you want more of. Be specific. I love when you, and fill it in. Sandwich things like you like to change between positive comments. I like this, and I want to cuddle more after we have an orgasm. And I really love when you, or how you do, and you finish it up. Suggest some things like you'd like to try. Say what you think it would be hot or fun or good. Be open for negotiation. Try to suggest an alternative if our partner suggests trying something you are unsure about or are uncomfortable with. Perhaps there's a variation which you would try or a different idea you can suggest. Rather than saying no, you can respond with, I don't know about that. Or how about we try this or the other thing? Cultural impacts on sex. Okay, so culturally, we have attitudes and beliefs about who should or should not engage in sexual behavior with whom and when. Differences in sexual behavior can be attributed to many variables, including race, ethnicity, age, availability of partners and relationship status, sexual orientation and identity, religious and spiritual beliefs, and health. All those can make they're contributing factors, major contributing factors. Research suggests that people tend to form romantic relationships with people who are, for the most part, similar to them. For example, it is common for one's partner to be of the similar age or similar economic background and similar race or ethnicity. That said, there are often at least some areas in which couples have their differences. By keeping an open mind and interest in learning about each other's background and perspective and committing to positive communication, couples can often understand and appreciate each other's differences rather than allowing the differences to hinder the relationship. Now, in a study conducted by the Gaddis and colleagues in 2004, they found that couples with high marital quality tended to be similar in terms of their core personality and characteristics. Compatibility with a partner and in terms of beliefs or values weren't as important to marital quality. So interestingly, when two people are the first getting to know one another, the beliefs and values tend to be disclosed early on, whereas it takes time to get to know the true personality characteristics of a mate. So tools of our culture include music and art and poetry or other ways that some express their sexuality beyond engaging in sexual behaviors. By attending to all 5 senses in our sexual interactions, we can heighten awareness, focus attention, and enhance the experience for ourselves and our partners. Taking the time for and including fragrance, music, lighting, positioning mirrors, using silk sheets or pajamas, along with special oils and lubes can break a boring routine and increase a feeling of connection with a partner. In your work as a sexual health promotion professional, you might encourage those around you to consider how their own culture has influenced how they express feelings of love or attraction, as well as how their partner, if they have one, may be influenced by their own background or culture. Woo woo! Are we ready? All right, so let's do the quiz.
So
All right, so only penile vaginal sex constitutes having had sex. True or false? And we say false because we just went over all kind of variations and all kind of other stuff that people can do, right? All right, most Americans have had intercourse by the time they're in their early 20s. True or false?
True.
True. 3, the gender gap is becoming wider in terms of number of lifetime sexual partners. True or false?
False.
Hmm?
False.
Yep, false. So single individuals report having more frequent sex compared to their married or cohabitating counterparts. True or false?
True.
I'm gonna say false. Single individuals report having more frequent sex compared to their married or cohabitating counterparts. Married or cohabitating counterparts have more frequent sex.
That's good to know.
I don't think that's
You better
true.
get married. No.
Listen, we got to look back at what year this was done because I'm looking at the dates. Remember, I told you.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they updated it when they even did all the cyber sex. They added that in there, but they still using a lot of old research, in my opinion. Again, my opinion.
You might be right.
Having accurate information about a sexual behavior and the potential risk involved affects an individual's sex decision-making capabilities. We're going to say true.
True. Yeah,
Having accurate information it's the way they worded it made it a little tricky, you know. Yeah. I wouldn't say potential risks. Let me see, potential risks involved in an individual's sex.
Yeah, but it might make me change my mind.
Right.
so maybe that's not a good idea.
All right. So 6, which of the following factors gives or provides individuals with a sense of who they are sexually? Is it gender and biological sex? Is it age, sexual orientation and culture? Is it relationship status, attitudes about sexuality and family roles? Or is it all of the above are correct?
All the above?
Yes, all the above. All right. Cunnilingus and fellatio are examples of
oral sex.
Oral sex, right? Not
Oral
sexual
sex,
positions, not the female male productive organs, and not examples of anal sex. It is examples of oral sex. 8, which of the following statements is true regarding masturbation? Is it masturbation is not a very effective way to learn about how you may respond to some types of sexual stimulation because it is self-performed? Is it people who are satisfying relationships sometimes engage in masturbation? Sex toys are not very common among adults, or all of the above statements are not true?
All of the above statements are not true.
People who are in satisfying relationships sometimes engage in masturbation.
Fine.
That one is true. Yes.
Okay.
Exhibitionism is an example of blank paraphilias, where a fetishism is an example of a blank paraphilia. So we have the non-coercive and a coercive. So exhibitionism is an example of coercive paraphilia, where fetishism is an example of non-coercive paraphilias.
B.
So it's going to be the third option, coercive versus non-coercive. And you would relate to that that chart, that diagram that has the paraphilias and the coercive versus non-coercive. I didn't expect you to remember it, but you know, you can use this as open book. I usually had 2 tabs open, right? Okay, so the third option, coercive and non-coercive. 10, blank involves mutually gratifying sexual interactions between consenting partners. Is it voyeurism, frauderism, exhibitionism, or sadomasochism?
Is it C, ABC?
D, sadomasochism. Involves mutually gratifying sexual interactions between consenting partners. They both like the pain.
BDSM.
Outer course, we might not have, if you read the chapter, you would have gone over what outer course is. I don't think we read that definition out loud, but is it engaging in sexual activity outside? Is it engaging in sexual activity with someone outside of your current relationship? Does it refer to all sexual behaviors except intercourse behaviors, or refers to sexual experimentation?
I think it's C.
Okay, it's either A or B, I think.
Okay, so it is C, or refers to all sexual behaviors except intercourse behaviors. So all those other options, they've given it a term called outer course. Rhonda, you muted, but I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So that's like petting and like foreplay and all that, right?
Yep.
Or is it weirder than that?
Right. It's everything but penile penetration.
Okay.
Outer course.
What is number 10? What is number 10 again? I didn't get that.
Sadomasochism.
Oh. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
50 Shades flavored.
Oh boy, here we go. I hear you, Jasmine. Okay, which of the following is not included in oral sex? Is it the cunnilingus? Is it the analingus, coitus, or fellatio?
Coitus.
Coitus.
Oh,
That
I
is
don't know.
not oral sex. All right, 13. Which of the following are not considered a non-coercive paraphilia? Again, you got to look at that chart to know. You're not going to have this stuff memorized unless this is something that you've already been, you know, experienced or work with, unless you got one of those photographic memories either. Okay, so it's exhibitionism. It's a non-coercive paraphilia. 14, this term describes an individual who has no interest in sex. Who remembers that one?
Asexual.
Right, it's called asexual. Hyposexual, hypersexual, or asexual. That's asexual. When they had the little grid and it had 3 things and it was like a line, and asexual was at the far end, the left end. That was like no sex drive, not even interested. 15, this describes an individual who has sexual interests and desires in both males and females. Hyposexual, hypersexual, asexual, or none of the above.
Asexual. Asexual?
Now think about this one. This is talking about
Isn't that
sexual.
bisexual?
You know what? No, it's none of the above.
That's bi.
Right. So hypo, and asexual is the sex drive.
Yeah.
But this question isn't discussing the sex drive. It's sexual interest in whether it's male or female. And so none of the above. That was trying to trick us, y'all.
How dare
But
they?
y'all get it, right? You get it.
It's so rude for trying to trick us. Trying to be great.
Uh-oh, it says I didn't answer one. Hold on.
Well, which one?
I did. Oh. Okay, there we go. The coercive, non-coercive. All right. So 1, you see, false. That is true. I mean, number 1 is correct. It was false. 2, true. That was correct. 3 is false. That is correct. 4 is false. That is correct. 5 is true. We have that correct. 6, all of the above. 7, examples of oral, correct. 8, people who are satisfying relationships sometimes engage in masturbation, correct. 9, coercive, non-coercive, correct. 10, sadomasochism, correct. 11, refers to all sexual behaviors, correct. 12, coitus, correct. 13, exhibitionism, correct. And 14, asexual, that's correct. 15, none of the above, correct. Woo! All right. Let's go to the next section. Can y'all believe it? We're on unit 8.
I'm gonna actually have to go, so I'm gonna have to catch the second half on the video.
Okay, please do. Please do. Get those quizzes.
Thank you so
out the
much
way.
for doing this.
Yes, thank you. I want to see these numbers though at the end of the month when they say, oh my goodness, the zebras had 20 people completed, or I don't know how many, but you know what I'm saying? We can do it. We can do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chapter 1 if it wasn't for the study group.
What'd you say?
I'd still be on chapter 1 if it wasn't for the study group.
Oh no, we all in this together. Let's do it. We're doing everything else together. Let's do it. And this is good information. What'd you say?
I started and stopped for you helping me.
Okay, try to watch the video and just take the unit quiz, so they don't pile up on you. All right, we're gonna go through unit 8. What we got on there? Let me see. Hold on, I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
It sounded like we had a spaceship.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to say earlier, but I didn't know where it was.
Okay. It's quiet, y'all. Okay, let's go. Again, you all can always unmute. I just don't want the recording to be bad, okay? All right. So involving areas, we call sex and gender. Evolving areas about what it means to be who we are in terms of our gender are allowing for gender expressions that are more flexible and varied than has been true in the past. So what it means to be male, what it means to be female, what it means to be transgender or gender non-binary is understood to be more complex than it was. As such, gender role expectations based on outdated images carry less power for limiting opportunities for those outside the norm. Birth assigned sex is determined by an anatomical and biological aspect of being human, whereas gender is considered to be a social concept related to how birth assigned sex is expressed in people, how you act. Traditionally described as a dichotomy of masculine or feminine, we now describe and experience gender in more blended ways. That is, rather than two choices, we view gender as a range or a continuum that might blend masculine characteristics and mannerisms with those that are feminine. People rarely have all masculine traits or all feminine traits. Rather, human beings tend to be interesting mixes of both masculine and feminine characteristics. Now, sometimes the majority of someone's attitude or behavior are not coded as an identified with either masculinity or femininity. Now, this person's gender may then perhaps be perceived as ambiguous. Now, this is called androgyny and falls in the middle of the gender continuum between masculine and feminine. So one of the important aspects of living as a sexual being is acting like your sex, whether you're a man, boy, or woman, or girl, and it is expected to act. From the first moments of life, every child is getting messages about what sex they are, and they are treated differently based on people's perception of their sex. Now, learning about societal and cultural expectations about how gender is performed is among the earliest and most impactful sexual learning. As early as age 2, children understand what their birth assigned sex is. Although they do not yet know that it probably won't change during their lifetime. As such, it's common for young girls to talk about wanting to be boys or for young boys to talk about wanting to be girls. It does not mean that they actually want to change genders. Such statements may simply reflect them wishing to do something that they see a sibling or a schoolmate doing that they want to do. For example, young boys ages 3 to 6 commonly talk about wanting to be like girls when they're playing dress up. After all, girls tend to have much more interesting dress-up clothes. Example, dresses, sparkly shirts, rhinestone shoes, colorful hats. I'm gonna add tutus. Whereas boys' dress-up clothes are quite often limited to belts and hats that represent firemen, policemen, and other stereotypical male jobs. That said, some children who talk about wanting to be or actually being another gender are sometimes showing early signs of being transgender. At these early ages, it is impossible to know how a person's gender identity will unfold. However, parents can show their child love and support, affirming their age as they explore their gender. Gender expectations can influence our interactions with others, including romantic and erotic interactions. Gender-based expectations about sexual performance and proper roles in a relationship can get in the way of performance and functioning in terms of sexual response. Rigid adherence to expectations about gender roles can be a barrier to allowing for the healthy give and take that is beneficial to partnerships. Biological, psychological, social cultural factors. We're gonna go to that section. All right, so it can be nearly impossible to base how people are on whether differences are caused by biological or environmental influences. It is difficult to separate the biological differences between men and women from the environmental influences people experience because they are male, female, or intersex. Now, both biological and environmental or sociocultural influences create variations among people from the earliest time of existence, even prior to birth. Now, to use generalizations that perpetuate stereotypes and create limits to people's opportunities is not helpful. Nonetheless, it can be beneficial to explore what similarities and differences we do believe exist between males and females regarding aspects of sexuality. So there's developmental differences. I won't read the whole section, but as we will discuss further below, the fetal development of biological sex differentiation kicks in at about 8 weeks of gestation. So during a childhood, girls typically reach puberty about 2 years before boys generally do. And this tendency for girls to have a 2-year step ahead of boys extend to other areas of adolescence development.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot my mask.
Okay.
What you supposed to be bringing me? What you supposed to be bringing me? You said out of all of them.
Okay, so aggression. Males demonstrate more aggressive behavior than do females. This includes both physically and verbally aggressive behavior. While androgens, male hormones, play a role in this, it is important to underscore the fact that culturally, males are encouraged to be aggressive. Culturally, it is sometimes seen as more appropriate, quote unquote, right, for males to be more aggressive than females. This is true at all ages. Sexual assault is more likely to be perpetrated by a male rather than a female, and most victims of the full range of sexual assault, from harassment to incest, rape, and murder, are female. This is not to say that males are not victimized by sexual harassment and violence. Sadly, they are. It is also the case that sociocultural expectations about masculinity, including the false idea that men always want sex, create barriers for men who experience sexual violence from speaking up or reporting the incident. Violence based on the perception of someone's being gay or transgender cannot be ignored as aspects of this topic as well. And violence between same-sex partners, including lesbian couples, is also problematic. Sex and research includes sex and research studies. Both men and women report that they engage in sexual intercourse primarily because they were attracted to the person. Abilities. Males tend to perform better on visual and spatial tasks than do females. Females on average demonstrate stronger verbal skills than do men. The size and strength differences between men and women allow men to excel at strenuous activities that require strength and endurance. On the other hand, Ginger from the famous dance duo Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers once said, "I can do everything that he does, only backwards and in high heels." Now, generally, it is assumed that men and women have similar abilities for most jobs. And we're going to go to parenting. Among the most ingrained gender-based roles in our culture are those of mother and father. Clear distinctions about the expected roles of each are apparent from the earliest prenatal visits, which typically accommodate women and not couples. In fact, most family planning facilities cater primarily to women as well. So cultural expectations about his or her role in parenting is clear. She is in the driver's seat, and even before they leave the driveway, and he is a passenger, if he is along for the ride at all. This, of course, is only one of the many stereotypical expectations about how men are and should be as fathers and how women are and should be as mothers. In fact, there are many ways to parent, and few of the actual limitations one might face are based on one's sex and gender. Gender identity, gender roles, and sexual stereotypes. Now, gender expectations extend to how males and females interact socially, romantically, and erotically. Gender schema, is a term, are the mental representations we all have about what males and females are good at and what are appropriate behavior and personality traits for each. These combine with sexual scripts, which assume our gender is the basis of predetermined roles and actions, and these cues and expectations are what inform people about the dance of relationship and how we are supposed to be. Now, traditional sex scripts encourage males to be the initiator of sex and romance, and females to regulate access to sex. Now, this has been coined by researchers as a sexual double standard. That's in reference to the normative belief that men are regarded for having a high number of sexual partners, whereas women are penalized for similar behavior. This gender schema does not encourage females to seek or demonstrate sexual pleasure, while it is expected that men will be inexhaustible, adventurous pleasure seekers. Obviously, communication problems and inherent unspoken assumptions are very dangerous as couples experience each other in a context of non-reality. Expecting people to be a certain way just because of their sex encourages confusion and limitations. By about age 5, boys have gotten a message generally that they act like boys by not acting like girls. Generally, males get less latitude in demonstrating androgynous or other sex gender characteristics than do females at all ages. Not until closer to puberty age do girls typically get strong pressure not to be like boys, to instead begin to be more ladylike or feminine. And then this more rigid approach to male gender expression is connected to societal homophobia that is generally felt more strongly toward gay men than towards lesbians. So this misconception includes a false assertion that real men are masculine, and a part of being masculine is wanting to have sex with women. Sexism is defined as the discrimination against someone based on their sex or perceptions about their sex. Sexism limits and hurts everyone. Everyone deserves as many possibilities for her or himself as are potentially available. Cultural limitations based on perceptions about sex and gender need not create barriers to self-fulfillment. Increasingly, people agree that there is a great benefit in moving towards less defined parameters of what is male or female. People can be who they are without having to worry about fitting into a certain narrow idea of gender. Transgender and gender diversity. All right, we're gonna go over a few definitions. So biological sex and gender are sexuality topics often assumed to be simple, black and white topics, an assumption that is simply not true. How sex and gender are defined and experienced is widely varied, and there are many possibilities between the two traditional options of male masculine and female feminine. We know too that language is a powerful tool for positioning a viewpoint and furthering understanding about the possibilities that exist. It is no surprise that the language we use to talk about gender and biological sex is constantly changing. Agender. Agender refers to someone who sees themselves as not having a gender. Some individuals may also use the term gender neutral to describe this feeling. Cisgender refers to identifying as the same gender at one's birth assigned sex. If your birth certificate identifies you as female and you still identify today as woman. Transgender refers to identify as a gender that is different than one's birth assigned sex, meaning that if your birth certificate identifies you as a male and you identify today as a woman, being transgender is a gender orientation, not a sexual orientation. Transgender individuals may identify as heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, queer, or some other sexual identity or orientation. Genderqueer is a term that some people use to indicate that they identify outside of the male-female gender binary or otherwise don't subscribe to conventional gender norms. Transition is a word that is used to describe the process of moving from one gender to another. This process may involve dressing as one's true gender, changing one's name, taking hormones, or having surgery. Gender affirming surgery. That refers to surgeries where a person may have to make their bodies feel closer to how they feel inside based on their gender. These may include top surgeries, breast implants, breast reduction, or bottom surgeries, creating a vagina, vulva, or penis or scrotum. Sometimes these are also called gender confirming surgeries. For personal, medical, health, or financial reasons, some people will never have the surgery or use hormones to alter their bodies. There's another term here. People who identify as third gender do not accept the common polarized gender identification, masculine, male masculine or female feminine, as fitting with their understanding of themselves. So some third gender people prefer sometimes to be called transgender, third gender, or genderqueer. Now, many examples of third gender individuals, broadly defined, are found across cultures around the world. Intersex. This is the last section of Unit 8. Now, intersex individuals, sometimes called those with disorders of sex development, are those whose anatomy mixes male anatomy with female anatomy. Now, intersex individuals are neither 100% biological male nor 100% biological female, but they are born with atypical sexual physiology. Now, an intersex identity is the result of many separate conditions, including 1, a chromosome variation, and there are over 70 irregularities or possible variations of the chromosome combinations beyond the XX or XY alternatives. Hormone variations. Variations in hormonal triggers during gestational development can affect the development of the tissue that is forming the fetus, external and internal genitalia. Hypospadias, I think. When the urethral opening is not in the usual place and at the end of the penis or between the clitoris and the vaginal opening. Now, some of these conditions can result in an individual being born with external genitals that are ambiguous. And this just means that it's not clear whether the organ that is present is a small penis or large clitoris. Now, there are different chromosome variations, and they've given some terminology to them based on research that was done. So a child's biological mother always gives an X chromosome for determining the sex of the fetus. And the father can give either X or Y chromosome. So if both give an X chromosome, that's the XX that we know, and the child's chromosomal sex will be female. And if the father gives a Y chromosome, then there's a XY and the child will be male. So of course it isn't always that simple. So there is a condition called the Turner syndrome, and that affects 1 in every 2,500 live female births in America. In this case, the father does not give any sex determining chromosome. It's like X blank. The child will be born female and have distinguishing characteristics, including short stature, webbing between the toes and fingers, and infertility. Now, there is another condition called the Klinefelter syndrome, and it is a result of an XXY chromosome pattern, which affects 1 out of every 400 live male births. 1 out of 400, wow. The child is born male and will likely be infertile. Another common variation is XYY chromosome, and this child is born male and might experience difficulty coping with social expectations. So all hormone variations. All fetuses initially begin development as female in approximately 7 to 8 weeks. Gestation hormones are triggered by the mother. That initiates the form of the fetal tissue that will become the external and the internal genitals of the child. If a male fetus is insensitive to androgen, the male hormone, then the fetus will be a XY. But when the internal and external genitals begin to develop, the insensitivity to male hormone causes the fetus to develop as a female. Typically reared as a female, this child will not menstruate or get pregnant, and sometimes surgery is performed to lengthen her vagina. So there is also a chart here to help you reference the differences between male and female. And there are a course of many possible variations in chromosomes beyond the XX and XY alternatives as we just spoke of. And now, are we ready for the quiz? No, don't look at that score. I just put something in so I can get us set up. So, are we ready? I need y'all to come off mute. I'm feeling like I'm by myself now.
Yes.
Ready.
Thank you. All right. In the case of David Reimer and the John and Joan case, provides strong support for gender identity and socially constructed. Is that true or is that false?
True.
You heard her?
What did she say?
True.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm looking for my cheat sheet. That was the whole point. I was running a few minutes late. Where did it go? Hold on. There we go. Trans people primarily live just in North America due to the cultural norms of this land. Is that true or false?
False.
Oh.
All right. Blank is determined by anatomical aspects of being human. Is it biological sex, gender identity, or sexual identity?
Biological sex.
Yes. Right. 4. Which of the following accurately describes the term androgyny? A social concept relating to how biological sex shows up in people? Is it possessing both female and male reproductive organs? Is it an individual who is sexually attracted to both men and women? Is it an individual whose gender may be perceived as ambiguous or falls in the middle of a gender continuum?
The last one.
And an individual whose gender may be perceived as ambiguous or falls in the middle of a gender continuum. Okay. 5. The term refers to people born in the body of one sex but believe they are another. Is that transgender, third gender, intersex, or gender dysphoria?
Transgender.
Okay. This term refers to individuals whose anatomy mixes male anatomy with female anatomy. Transgender, third gender, intersex, or gender dysphoria?
Intersex.
Intersex, yes. All right, 7. This term refers to people do not accept the common polarized gender identifications, male, masculine, or female, feminine, as fitting with their understanding of themselves. Is that transgender, third gender, intersex, or gender dysphoria?
Third gender.
Yes. See, not too bad when we do it together, right? When a person's gender is perceived as ambiguous, this is called androgen deficiency, androgynous, neutral, or anti-androgen. Androgynous. 9. What is one explanation for sexual assault perpetrated to be by a male rather than a female? Is it females are socially constructed to be passive? Culturally, males are encouraged to be more aggressive than females. There aren't any explanations, or sexual drive is higher in men.
Males are
Culturally, males are encouraged to be more aggressive than females.
yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Yes. 10. In research studies, blank report that they engage in sexual intercourse primarily because they were attracted to a person. Is that women? Is that men? Both men and women, or very few people?
Both men and women?
Yes. That's usually everybody like, why else you having sex? No, I'm just kidding. No, that was the common factor though. They were attracted. All right. 11. The mental representations we all have about what males and females are is a good term for gender stereotypes, gender schema, gender differences, or none of the above. The second one, right? It's the second one. Gender schema is pretty much talking about those stereotypes and everything, but that's the term for it. It's the second option. All right, 12. What is meant by reverse sexual double standard? Is it that women's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than men's? Women's sexual attitudes are evaluated more harshly than men's, or men's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than women's, or women's sexual attitudes are evaluated more harshly than women's?
Women are more harshly evaluated than men.
So men's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than women's?
No.
What is it?
Women is evaluated more harshly.
Okay.
Than men.
So that would be 2, huh? Or
I think this one's gonna be questionable.
Yep.
Hold on, let me see something. Hold on, y'all. I want to see something. Well, I could just do it, but there is a particular part that talks about that. Talked about that double standard.
because it's either women's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than men, or women's sexual attitude. It's probably women's sexual behavior. I think it's one.
All right, we're gonna pick one. Which one y'all want? 1, 2, 3, 4.
A, yeah. Women's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than men.
Okay. I have a star by this as a trick.
That's the one I say.
Okay. I got my paper says it's the third one, but I also got a star that it was a trick one. So let's see. At what age do boys have the message that they should act like boys by not acting like girls? It's by the age of 5. Yep. They're getting out of kindergarten. Like in kindergarten, they're like, all right. Which of the above accurately describes the Turner syndrome? Is it the syndrome that's resulting in the XXY chromosomal pattern? Is it the one where the children with the syndrome will be born female and have distinguishing characteristics? Is it the one where the children with this syndrome are born male and might experience difficulty coping, or none of the above?
None of the
So the Turner syndrome for 14 would be the children with the syndrome will be born female and have distinguishing characteristics, short stature, webbing feet, toes, fingers, and infertility.
Oh.
Right.
It was 3 different syndromes on that one page.
as a chromosome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they just have like one X.
I can't hear you good.
Is that the one where they just have one chromosome where it's like X and a 0 or something?
Turner, which one? Hold on. The chromosomes. That wasn't that the last one. Intersex. I'm gonna just tell you.
The Turner syndrome is like born female, and they're usually infertile.
Right, and it shows that it affects 2,500 live female births in America 1 in every 2,500. Okay, so the Klinefelter syndrome on 15, which one is it?
That's
Is it
where the male is the XYY, where the male is not fertile. They're born a male and they're not fertile.
okay, XXY? Yep, the XXY chromosome pattern, and it affects 1 out of every 400 live males. And it says the child is born male and will likely be infertile. Okay. So that would be the first option. So let's go ahead and submit. Guess what? We got the first one wrong, y'all. It's true. The case of David Reimer provides strong support for gender identity as socially constructed. The answer is false.
That's the first.
Yep. It says this. I told y'all I struggled with this chapter. I'm being honest. This case actually provided support that gender identity is more innate than one may have originally thought. Okay, 2, false. Trans people are actually found throughout a variety of cultures and around the world. 3, biological sex is determined by an anatomical aspect of being human. 4, an individual whose gender may be perceived as ambiguous or falls in the middle of a gender continuum. 5, transgender. 6, intersex. 7, third gender. 8, androgynous. 9, culturally males are encouraged to be more aggressive than females. 10, both men and women. 11, gender schema. And 12, it was the third one, men's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than women's. That's the reverse double standard. So because of the word reverse, we put the right one, but that's not the reverse of it. So women's sexual behavior is evaluated more
They
harshly.
had a trick word, reverse.
I told you I had a star. It was like,
Yeah.
It was a trick question. And so we're right. This is true. Women's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than men's, but the reverse double standard is that men's sexual behavior is evaluated more harshly than women. So.
Okay, I didn't hear that reverse.
So, okay, 13, age 5, 14, we got it right. Children with this syndrome will be born female and have distinguishing characteristics. And 15 is the first option. The syndrome is the result of the XXY chromosome pattern that affects 1 out of every 400 male births. Woo!
We are the best. We still pass.
We did it, y'all. We did it.
Hey, good stuff, ladies. Good stuff.
Well, I thank you all for another evening of success. And please go in if you have not and get those chapter quizzes done, those unit quizzes complete, so that if you fall behind on anything else, you're not looking at like, well, I've been watching the videos, but I didn't do the quizzes. No, get it all done. Get it all done. That way, if you have to do any cramming at any point or life just happens, because we keep trying to tell you when you succeed and stuff gonna come up. It's gonna come up and get in the way. Don't let it stop you. Don't let it hold you back. Be prepared. So when things are going great, get it in, get it going. And even if you slow down a little bit, look what kind of support you have. You get these videos in and take the quiz and get it done. I want to see everybody screenshots. I certified. Woo!
That's what I was just thinking. We're going to show our certificate at the same time on Zoom.
Yeah. So this is awesome. And I'm telling you, it makes you such a better consultant because you have some insight that women are not always exposed to. And it just, they feel it. They see it, they hear it, and they like, yeah. And it's going to make you stand out more than anybody else that they've ever seen, or any sex shop they've been into, anything like that. So it's going to make you be very, very unique and enhance your business. So we can do it. Plus, y'all don't want to pay the $300, do you? Would you say, Rhonda?
No.
Oh,
No, I don't.
look, that could be more product or something else, something that can be done with that $300.
Another IAP.
Yes. She said,
That's one of the main reasons I joined up. I just wanted a certificate.
yes. So congratulations, ladies. I have another session with Angela in a minute. So I am going to let you all have a wonderful evening and study, and help anybody else that needs help connecting and registering and getting set up. Tell them that they can do it too. Help them get caught up. Okay. And we're almost done.
Good evening.
Good evening. It'll be a couple hours. This will be posted, but it takes time to download, okay? This recording. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
And if you can, follow the YouTube
Bye,
page.
everyone.
Subscribe to the YouTube page.